She's twerking.
All right,
Did you say
Renee's
twerk?
twerking.
I didn't say
Let's start from there.
twerk. I didn't say twerk. Is it
All right, ready?
Yeah, well, you haven't started yet, right?
twerk?
Can you twerk your? I want to see you twerk.
Twerking.
We're gonna be getting this. We're gonna be getting this.
People.
You said it.
Got her.
Your nails look really good.
Okay. Okay.
This is Mark and Renee take 2.
I looked this up in various journals, various medical journals, is that medicine can be practiced in a lot of places, not just in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I've read these things. But you're here. You guys practice here. Your family lives here. Your roots are from here. Why Stillwater? Why have you stayed? Why do you live here today?
You want to start?
Oh, gosh. Well, we did grow up in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, which I think in seeking to where we would settle to raise a family, Stillwater seemed similar in size, but with the wonderful advantage of the university and all that it offers. And raising 3 children here, school was great. They had a well-rounded, seemingly enjoyable life, and thank goodness they seemed to make good, healthy choices for themselves, so we didn't have a lot of challenges we had to deal with, and feel like that's partially due to being in a great smaller town USA. And yes, our needs were met here, and I think he was, I won't speak for you, but seemingly always happy and with his work, and at a great medical center, Stillwater Medical Center. So
When I started looking for a practice to join, at the time I was finishing the training residency, which was in Tulsa, we looked several places. We went to some other communities, and we even looked at Bartlesville. I had some docs I reached out to in Bartlesville to see if they needed a new partner. And one of the friends who was a year ahead of us was joining a practice in Tulsa, and I really thought we would stay in Tulsa at the time and join them, and that opportunity wasn't there. So I was talking to a doctor that was here in Stillwater as he was transferring one of his pregnant patients to Tulsa, where we were, and kind of just off the cuff asked him if he needed a doc in Stillwater, and he said yes, and come talk to me. So that's kind of how it started. So we went there for undergraduate and had family that lived there, so we went and talked to them. It was kind of an easy decision. The fit was really good. It was a good practice, and I didn't know anything about the hospital, honestly, but as it turns out, I don't think I could have picked a better hospital of this size community than Stillwater. It has always had a good reputation, has always been really good to take good care of patients, and so I no regrets about, from the medical perspective, staying in Stillwater.
You know, when we had our phone call, whose mom was in the background? When we had our pre-interview?
my mom
That
is all that's left of our parents, yeah.
Yeah.
It was, first of all, it looked cozy. Your mom was on what looked to be a very cozy seat, watching TV. You guys were there taking care of her. And I immediately started asking questions to your daughter, and just thinking through these things and talking with Hunter, is that these folks take care of folks. And whether it's medicine, your parents, you take care of folks. Where does that come from?
I guess we watched our parents take care of their parents. And just, we've been able to be involved with our parents over the years. They were involved in our lives and our kids' lives. And I guess that's just what we do. That's what you do.
It was my purpose. I mean, if you look at if you come up with a purpose statement for your life, that was a part of it for me, and family, patience,
Taking care of people.
yeah, caring for others, but helping take care of them. So I think I think it's kind of part of your DNA, whether you're like that or you're not. Just kind of how I was wired, I think.
Renee, we talked about the store a bit, and it is a service. It is provided. It's interacting with human beings. Tell me about your store.
Oh, gosh. It was for a short period of time, but growing up in a retail family, something stirred within me to have my own business. Those stores were in Bartlesville, and I wanted to bring something downtown in Stillwater that wasn't there at the time, and it was something that was it was to touch all senses. It was called Heaven Sent: Treasures for the Heart and Home, and just inspirational and encouraging books and art and candles that would stir your senses, and music that would be soothing and encouraging. And with what I believe, it did have Christian merchandise, because that's who we are, and we believe that adds so much help and strength in our life to that God is part of this journey with us. And it was part of my purpose of the store was to have that, to bring that to downtown. Anyway, my family, everybody in the family was involved and helped, so.
You know, Mark, and I think about, I knew of you before I knew you, because I had heard from the folks that you had mentored that came directly after you in practice to told me about you. Told me what you meant to them. Told me what you'd done, how many kiddos you helped bring into this world, but also you taught them about being parents and about being better physicians. And I think about that starting somewhere as an origin story of going, well, why medicine? And maybe it goes back to what you told me about serving folks and having purpose. But why medicine for you?
Well, I had a stirring, I think, to head that direction pretty young. It'll sound a little crazy, really, but I really liked the sciences of biology in junior high, and kind of just the things you do in a biology class at that age, kind of was like, this is very interesting. I was fascinated by it, and probably watching a whole different level of television at that stage of the world. And I was really inspired by shows that showed medical people doing good things. And so it kind of fit. I thought, well, what do you do with all that? And I went, well, maybe that's what I should be. And so really, that's the path I kind of headed down. You never know. Somebody at the 8th grade said, I want to be a doctor. If you're, I also probably wanted to drive a trash truck. So, you really never know where it's going to go. But this one stuck, and, I knew going into college that that's what I was going to do, and which made it easier not to party too much early on to keep the grade point average where it needed to be. And but it was
party.
Yeah, I was pretty boring, I think, and as college students go, but it worked out really well, and it helped that Renee and I were already in a relationship, so there wasn't any of that to, have to deal with, really, with the dating scene per se. But so she got in on this from the ground floor, not knowing if I was gonna be successful, because it was pretty hard to get into medical school from what I was told, and turned out to be that way. So for me, I was fortunate to know I needed to buckle down early, and even traded roommates my first semester because my original roommate thought the party scene was definitely a good thing, and another guy I knew was pre-vet, so we ended up rooming together, and that worked out well. So.
Well, Mark, I've apologized for that semester we roomed together. I have made apologies for that prior.
It would have been more fun,
Those
but
couple of semesters. You know, when we did the pre-interview, I don't know how you guys pick a specialty. Like, I don't know how, we talked about pilots in the Air Force, so how do they get the planes? You delivered a baby late at night. And I want to say you told me, Ryan, that's when I knew that bringing a life into this world is for me. So tell me how you picked your specialty. What was the moment? What was the synapsis of thought? What was the instance when you knew this is what you wanted to do as a specialty?
I kind of think it picked me in a way, in that I'd never in my life envisioned that would be what I would choose. I mean, it never crossed my mind. I always thought I'd probably go into family practice, kind of general medicine. And in the course of doing the different rotations in internal medicine, pediatrics, OB, surgery, all the different things, the only one that really lit me up was doing the deliveries. It surprised me, quite honestly. I didn't see it coming. And you're right, at 2 a.m. one night, I was on call, or I was doing my rotation, and actually Dr. Carnes, who ended up being my partner for 30 years, was the one that was a year ahead of me. So he was helping me with my first delivery. And so I called Renee when I got done about, I don't know, between 2 and 3 in the morning, and told her what had happened. And, oh, that's really great. Let me go back to sleep. But it was, you don't know it at the time, but I think that really was the turning point for that. I didn't really know what I was getting into, by the way. You're pretty young at that point, and I certainly hadn't seen every specialty there is in medicine. But of the ones I had done, that really looked like it'd be a lot more positive and fulfilling than doing some of the other things. And so it kind of picked me.
I look at, Mark, you're in practice for 30 years.
Here, yeah.
Here, for 30 years. Both of you. I've been working on Stillwater medical stuff for 10 years, maybe longer than that. And what I showed up to do on day one, what I have seen in brick and mortar and personnel is not what I'm seeing today. You all have been around for growth. What have you seen grow? What have you seen change in this amount of time at Stillwater Medical?
Is that for me or for Renee?
It's for everybody. You both have seen the brick and mortar go up. You probably heard about new services. You see new people in town, whether they are administration, or they're in nursing, or they're a physician. You've seen growth. And so what does that growth look like, and what does it mean? What does growth mean?
Well, in particular, why we're here tonight, going to be for this kind of fundraising, I've seen the community just really grow to support the financial, emotional investment of people in our community to help build what Stillwater has become, and improving and offering specialties and special care that you can now get in Stillwater that you couldn't get 30 years ago. You might have to go out of town. So it's wonderful. That's we're about this whole event about helping promote something that's so important to keep more families in town with a NICU. And I think that each thing that's happened, the oncology, the cardiovascular, and the growth of our orthopedics practices. Anyway, so there's a lot to be proud of and to feel very comfortable and confident to recommend people to stay in town for their medical care because there's good care here.
Much has changed since we came, just the whole practice of obstetrics, from the idea of a woman laboring, delivering, and recovering in the same room. In the beginning, it was like, a woman would be in a labor room, and then as it was getting time to deliver, she'd have to be taken down the hall in her bed to the delivery room. We only had one delivery room and one C-section room. And so we actually had our first new women's wing after I came, and that was night and day difference from what we had originally. And then now we're on the third version here in Stillwater since we've lived here. And the whole time I was in practice in Stillwater, we lived with a entry-level nursery. And what that meant was that we really did not have the capability of keeping babies that were much under 36 weeks, and with 40 being full term. And so we had to transfer a lot of patients that were just premature between 32 and 36 weeks. And sometimes they didn't have to stay in the hospital very long. It was just a matter of, well, they might. And so mothers got transferred to Tulsa, Oklahoma City a lot, by ambulance, by helicopter. And, it was what it was. But the idea now of being able to elevate Stillwater Medical Center to a place that has a level 2 nursery will be a huge shift. And it was so hard to have to tell moms, well, we can't deliver you here. We can deliver you here, but the baby would then probably have to be transferred. And it was always considered better for the baby to be delivered wherever they had the level 3 nursery. So if it was at all possible, we would transfer the mothers with baby intact. And, it was hard. Nights, weekends, we had to call, find a doctor that would receive, a high-risk doctor that had room. We'd call, say, we need to transfer a baby. Well, we don't have any rooms in our NICU, so neonatal intensive care unit, I should say. And so then we'd have to call a different hospital and, on and on. So at 3 a.m, sometimes took several hours to get a patient transferred. And of course the impact on the mother and the rest of the family, just knowing they were going to have to be transferred was hard and scary. And it was what we had to do. But this idea that's what this is all about is to change that. And so I don't know the numbers on how many more moms and babies will get to stay in Stillwater, but it'll be a lot. And that's a big change. that's huge.
My dad would say, Ryan, it was a lot harder watching you play baseball than it was for me to play baseball. I felt like I had some level of control. But what's beyond me, those things become more difficult. So when you all have your kids, it's one thing. When your kids have kids, is it different? What is that like?
Scary, fun, exciting. There's so many things. And fortunately, for us, most of them were pretty normal, except when they weren't. And we had a couple of those that weren't. And, no one expects that. You go along, you think about having a baby, and normal is common. We just expect everything to be normal. And then
Goodness.
And then one day, it's like any parent that got that phone call, or, somebody gets a diagnosis, one day, and all of a sudden one day, we find out that the ultrasound wasn't okay.
Sorry.
Your turn. Anyway, you can't forget that. You want to, it's like when you want to unsee something, you can't. But when that day hit, I found out that Audrey wasn't going to be normal. I wasn't used to being on that side. I never liked it at all as a doctor, as an OB doctor, to have to tell a mom, hey, I've got some bad news, or they come in to check the heartbeat, and it's not there, or whatever, your world changes. It's just never quite the same. And so we'll remember that day. And Rachel came into my office after she'd had the ultrasound, and then our sonographer, and then her doctor was my partner, Dr. Carnes. And we started going over what was going on, and so, it went from there. But life changed. We became consumers in the healthcare industry in a way that I'd never been on that side. I'd been in NICUs, I'd worked with high risk, I'd done all that, and I didn't really know how to be in this role. And you do what you got to do, and we did what we had to do, and took the steps, and so we were grateful that we had a good sonographer and a good friend who could be the guy to guide us and to let me take the role of grandpa and dad. And she got into good hands, and ultimately got to a place that was something like Renee said, we weren't sure we'd ever get to see her born alive, and we did, and we had her for 81 days. And we wouldn't trade that for anything. We didn't want it. No one wants that, but there was a lot of beauty surrounding the pain. And so that little 4-pounder changed me, changed Renee, certainly changed her parents, and I think pretty much everybody who was involved was in a good way, I think. Perspective changed, and practice for me changed. Yeah.
Renee, you don't have to let us know this, but what were those conversations like with your daughter, with Rachel? Let's say when the ultrasound wasn't what we'd hoped it would be, what were those conversations like with Rachel?
Well, gosh, I think we're all just pretty speechless. The gravity of it, it certainly takes the wind out of your sails. A pregnancy you're excited about suddenly is so scary and so just, uncharted waters. No. And what do you say there's nothing to say. There was feeling and just support. I never hurt so deeply as when she was in such great pain emotionally, she and Chris both. And to see your child hurting like that changes you, because there's not a darn thing you can do but support and love and hold. And believe, though, we believe miracles are possible, miracles were possible. Audrey got lots of little miracles throughout her days, but she wasn't meant to be healed. It just wasn't in her story. Rachel writes about that. But because they lived in Edmond at the time, it was easier for she and Chris to be at Mercy more often. We're so grateful to family. Mark's sister and brother-in-law had a condo in Oklahoma City at the time, and we were able to stay up there and be closer. And I'm talking about, I guess, mostly after she was born, but it was such a gift to not know how long we had, but to get to go so frequently. And I think that's the desire, is that if all we can do is be there for someone, or hold or hug or encourage, then we want this facility to happen in Stillwater so people can, their families and their friends, because sometimes when nothing else can help, just another person to help you carry that burden. And so for people of Stillwater and surrounding areas, they would have that hope and encouragement from other people better when they could be closer. And my goodness, as horribly hard as it is on parents and siblings of a baby in a NICU, for them not to have to travel, to go home and have some good rest, and then to go back up and take the sibling. I mean, all that emotionally helps them. So I believe that transfers to the baby, and they can touch them more. We know that helps infants. Anyway, I'm just so excited. I just really believe this is going to happen for our community, and I'm proud of our community and our medical center and the foundation for working so hard to create this. It will, to do something so enduring and so life-changing for, unfortunately, the families that have to use it. But it's a wonderful thing to help really hard times for some folks.
Coming off of that, Mark, I need to know about. It's interesting to know as much as you know about these scenarios, these situations. You talked about the idea of delivering not the best news to a patient, and I was wondering. I started thinking, what is the crossover between physician and grandfather? Take me, if you will, take me through that first initial conversation with Rachel about, well, I might not have the best news for you, or the news is not what we'd hoped. And what was that conversation like from the ultrasound?
I think some things just, the shock factor, I think Renee talked about, it's like, sometimes I don't remember the words of our conversation in the beginning. I know they happened, but I think it was more about just being there and hugging. There wasn't a whole lot. At that point, we didn't know all the answers, and it was more a matter of probably trying not to overplay it. I mean, I think that would be my tendency, not to sugarcoat, but also not to immediately go to the worst. And quite frankly, there were multiple things going on the ultrasound, and it was hard to know how significant each of those were going to be and how much of an impact those were going to have on her survivability and or her functional capabilities in life, and that she had something going on in part of her brain and clearly something going on in her heart that were not connected in terms of each had their own impact. And we'll never know exactly what happened that triggered all of these things to happen. It probably all occurred about the same time, some kind of a mishap and blood flow to the placenta, or we don't know. So all I think I could really do probably at that point is try to paint as true a picture as I could with what we saw, and start saying, well, we just got to go figure this out, and we'll get you with the right people. I mean, I don't know if at that point I was probably more on the medical side than Dad, except for the pain that was different. I mean, I would feel pain whether it was my daughter or yours, but yeah, there's a reason doctors really try to avoid taking care of their own family, because objectivity is difficult. And it was really hard to not to try to step in and do what I could to fix it, right? And there's some things we can do and we can fix, and some things we can't. And I couldn't fix this, and that's hard, you know. I remembered that very conversation with another patient that maybe had a condition where it had no functioning kidneys. And this was about halfway through the pregnancy or a little after, and having the conversation that your baby can't survive with this. This was so different. With Rachel's, we didn't know, but sometimes we have to tell them this baby has a condition that is not compatible with life, period. And that's a conversation you just don't want to have, but you have to have it. And oddly enough, they're good friends now. Yeah, but we kind of walked through that hell together. But. So with Rachel, yeah, it was, I don't know, the hardest thing ever, I think.
Can you walk us through the chain of events? From the first ultrasound, the day that you lost her, can you walk us through what had happened, or the chain of events?
Well, the next step is transfer or is referral. Because with these things, she needed to go to Oklahoma City to meet with the high-risk specialists. We call them maternal fetal medicine physicians that are OBGYNs that went on and specialized in high-risk obstetrics. And I already knew these people. I'd worked with them for a long time. And so the phone call was different. Actually, Tom made the phone call, I'm certain. And we got her in, and they got Rachel into an appointment fairly quickly. And they have the highest quality ultrasounds made. And so they repeated the ultrasound and really found the same things we did in Stillwater. And from that point started through the process of setting up the follow-up and the plan. And obviously it involved lots of appointments, lots of ultrasounds that would go on. I don't know, in the beginning, not as often, but as time went along, every week, monitoring her progress and her growth and whether or not she was still with us. I mean, you know, there was just uncertainty whether the cardiac thing that she had would at some point take her life before she was ever born.
And there were discoveries as she developed and things that weren't developing properly. They knew the size of her lungs was not normal, small. Her chest cavity wasn't a normal size. She was always very low weight, Audrey. It was at 19 weeks in Rachel's pregnancy when this started, the discovery that Audrey was not healthy. And it became at a point that there was never the normal amount of amniotic fluid, and that continued to be a problem.
And babies their lungs won't develop if they don't have amniotic fluid. And even being diminished can affect the lung development. So that's a real key factor in her survivability. This just kind of went on, and you know, just weekly.
About 6 weeks early, I believe it was a planned, cesarean section, and she was
I think she got 36,
4 pounds
Yeah.
plus a few ounces.
4'3".
And
But she made it.
we couldn't, but everyone who was there, again, lots of family and friends showed up because it was either going to be her birthday and her last day or her birthday. And no one knew, the doctors didn't know, no one could say. So we didn't know if we would celebrate her. Well, of course we celebrated her, but that we might also have to be mourning that same day. And it was like a miracle. And it was just, people just cheering because she was alive and she was being prepared to go to the NICU. I mean, it was amazing, really. And I guess you would say that's the first big miracle, really, of Audrey. It started then. And so there's just big hope in that. And it's like, okay, she is meant to be here, and we are going to cheer and pray hard for her. And so we all learned the routine of visiting in a NICU, but we are so grateful that we could go in with Chris and Rachel.
And things were good. I mean, she wasn't perfect by any means, but she was doing a lot better than everyone expected in the beginning. And
Well, there are hard things like, she couldn't be held because of the central line, because of things she needed to survive for a while. So it was like a huge celebration when she could have the central line out and could be held by her family and, nestled to her mama's chest. And there were difficulties. The child would have lots of bruises on her little body because of trying to get in this line or another line to change out of the central line, trying to get a PICU. And anyway, it was hard to see that on this tiny little person, which only got worse as the weeks went by because of the difficulties that happened with her. But I mean, they were really getting ready. She was,
Growing.
there are step-down stages in a NICU. And so really she had gotten to the point she was taking enough Rachel's milk and taking it from a bottle, and she was growing, and the oxygen level, they were taking it down, so they were like looking at going home. And June 23rd, 24th hit, and things got very complicated, and it became emergent that she was transferred to OU Children's Medical Health Center. And that night, unfortunately, there's a doctor that hadn't been there very long who was a
Pediatric cardiovascular surgeon.
surgeon, yes. If he had not been there, a baby having this kind of problems would have to go to Kansas City, I believe. So it was amazing that a surgeon was there to take care of her needs. But it took quite a while for them to determine what they would do with her, what they were going to try. And that hence was the night she had open heart surgery, and they found out the problems also with connections to the lungs, my simplistic terms there, but it was incredible in her state. Again, she survived. So there's celebration and hope again with her making it through that emergent surgery. And
A lot more details. Would take all night.
She had it for 81 there.
81 days.
again, the last week of her life, they were preparing to send her home on oxygen, with a feeding tube in and on oxygen. And they were going through the steps, and she got to a point, and that wasn't in God's plan for this little girl. She was not to get to stay with us on this earth, but her last night, she, I guess you call it, crashed. They were sustaining her life to get Rachel and Chris together there, and the doctors that needed to be there to really look at things. And a different doctor who hadn't really looked at her case came in, and they determined that her lungs had a what's the name of the disease she had in her lungs that really wasn't seen before, and it was nothing that surgery, or medicine could repair. And this would ultimately, she would not be able to survive, no matter how many times she was kept alive with the ECMO, the machine that.
Lung bypass. Well, they were getting ready to do that. They were getting ready to put her on kind of essentially a bypass that you would kind of do for somebody having open heart surgery, just to sustain her until they could get her to surgery, if that was going to be the answer. And this was a middle of the night, midnight, 1, 2 in the morning gathering of all the highest level practitioners there looking at the case and making the decision, or the time to make the decision whether to go ahead, put her through more surgery or not. And ultimately, Rachel and Chris had to decide whether they wanted to put her on ECMO and buy more time to see if they thought they could do anything else. And they said no more. They thought she'd been through too much already, and the odds didn't look good. and they just were not going to subject her to anything that wasn't a sure deal. And
Well, and that's what the doctor said. There wasn't a way
yeah, it was unlikely it was going to have
to
any.
fix her.
Yeah.
She,
So, yeah.
and again, people could come in to support for that last day, which was just amazing and incredible.
The last day, everyone got there, our family, and they did everything to keep her going, and everyone got a chance to hold her, and it was the hardest, most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So,
I want to talk about her impact. I want to go back about a year ago. When your daughter put on the gala, she asked the community to stand up and help provide funding for a level 2 NICU. She asked for a show of hands in some sense. What I am told is your hands were raised high. And you gave support of the brick and the mortar and the machines, the personnel, for a new level 2 NICU in Stillwater, Oklahoma. My question is why?
well, that was pretty easy, really. I mean, you know, as hard as all of that was to go through all that and to watch and, you know, the pain, for me to have sat, from my perspective, to have sat for hours, days and hours, watching the orchestra play, I call it, of the care team, from the NICU nurses to the physical therapists to the pulmonary team to the cardiovascular surgeon and his assistants, and on and on and on. And to look at the pictures of the towers of pumps that were all pumping different things to keep her alive during every transition and through the cardiovascular surgery, and just to watch the amazing symphony played to do the impossible. I mean, you know, we live in a time where we kind of expect that we can fix everything, and everyone expects everything to get fixed. But, you know, if it was possible, she got it. You know, if it was gonna be done, she was getting getting great care. And I always appreciated my team when I was working, from operating room team to labor and delivery team, nurses, people in my office. I mean, it took everybody to make everything work, but I never sat and watched it. It's real easy to want to help.
Well, what else can we do, you know, but help support and encourage other people to help make this happen, and just significantly help people who will need to use it, and their whole families will benefit from the mama and the baby getting to stay in Stillwater for as long as possible with a level 2 NICU. But yeah, just the that you want somebody not to go through this you want to provide any amount of comfort possible for someone going through such a hard time with their precious little newborns.
You know, it wasn't the only time we dealt with the NICU either. And 2 years later, Emma was born. And because of her having had a cesarean with Audrey, Rachel ended up with another complication where had to do with the placenta and where it had attached, and she ended up having to have Emma very early for Rachel's health, about 6 weeks early. So she was also in the NICU, and a whole different scenario, mainly just being premature. But so we were recipients and were gifted with a lot of help through that, and we couldn't really pay them back for all they did for us. So I guess it's in a way a pay it forward to help other families. And in our case, it might not really have changed where Rachel was with Audrey and Emma, but I can tell you as a practitioner, I had hundreds of patients that would have been blessed by a level 2 nursery in Stillwater. So it's real easy for me to want to get this done and help support it. And we're both really grateful that so many people in Stillwater are willing to give of their resources to make that happen. You know, it's really hard for hospitals to do well. For a hospital the size of Stillwater, to have a hospital that's doing as well as it is pretty amazing. A lot of them close. Reimbursements just aren't that good. And Stillwater is a nonprofit hospital. There's nobody making dividends except for the benefits of the health. You know? So I think as a community, if we want to have this level of a hospital in Stillwater, Oklahoma, we've got to put up. So
And
it's easy for us to want to do that.
And it does, it's not about Audrey, but for our family, it does give more purpose to say, for us to be on board and to, so grateful to be able to help support this effort because and in honor of and in remembrance of our Audrey. And it honors Chris and Rachel for all they've been through with having a very special child like Audrey was.
In all the, with all the seeming, the pain of it all, that I don't want it to be lost of how much beauty there was in the periphery of all this, with people, with family, and just so many people that stepped up, sent things, gave things, just were there for Rachel and Chris and us. And I know that's probably not that unusual. We just never experienced that side of, I guess, needing help. We weren't used to asking for help, and nor was Rachel for sure. And you learn what a blessing it is to receive that allows other people to give. And so I think that's important that we don't focus all of this on all the negativity of how hard it was, because there was this little 4-pounder did more probably to change our lives than a lot. We're told that, in this world we will have trouble, but by our faith, Jesus said, I have overcome the world. So we mourn with a hope. We aren't people that look at this and say, well, that's the end. We firmly expect to see her again. And much as it's hard now, we look forward to seeing her again. So.
It's a really big thing. Amazing how it changes your perspective on a healthy live birth. It's like you get used to that being the normal, and wow, it can it's just such a miracle that we're all, so many of us get to live such normal lives and have good health. So much to be grateful for, and the other side is tough.
I'm going to ask just one more question, and I it kind of goes back just briefly. You know, I was really affected by that idea and by that mission. Was that Audrey's life and her legacy lives in what's to be built. And you know, and I
Tell me about it.
I just want to know about that thought. If that is something that you all think about, is that her life has such impact. Will have such impact on folks you will never meet. Do you think about that? What does that mean to you all?
It gives the struggle value, because what's hardship and heartache and tragedy, what's it worth unless something blooms from it that's a positive, and something comes from it that helps other people. I mean, and so there this is, an opportunity to make a difference in our community, and who knows how many lives can be affected or will be affected over the years with.
Mark, what do you think? I remember you telling me that, and I sat with that. I remember you saying, I feel like her life will be in this building. And I just sat with that. The last thing I thought about that night was what you said.
Yeah. It's kind of hard. I don't know. For me, it's hard to, I don't know, even put that into words. I mean, how I don't know how her life is going to impact certain people. I don't know. But one of the things Rachel said that just resonated, I guess, or has ever since, was she made I guess a commitment, a promise to Audrey or to God about choosing to always tell her story if asked. So I guess it's the least we can do to help carry that along, tell her story when the chance comes, and like this, it's okay that we don't know the impact that she has on people. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not that we have to see it. We don't need any. We don't need to be paid, you know what I mean, in words or in any way other than just, it's nice to know that maybe it will. And I believe that the better we have medical care close by, the better babies will do. The odds of losing a baby or hurting a baby because we don't have access to care goes down, the more we can do locally. I mean, much like the cardiac, if you don't have somebody that can go in and put a stent in 30 minutes, then you're going to lose more people getting transferred to Oklahoma City. So helicopters fall, having to transfer a baby in a helicopter puts people at risk. If we can keep them here, it lowers the risk. So I know it's going to have an impact. I just don't know how far-reaching Audrey's life will be, but it's making a difference in Stillwater. That I know.
I'd ask in this piece for you to look in the camera lens and tell Rachel what you think about her and her mission, the foundation. I just figured we just bring her out. It'd probably be the best thing, just talk to her about it.
Oh my.
I saw her peeking around there.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Well, who would think that 10 years ago life would you bring you to be a part of Stillwater Medical Center
Oh, okay.
Foundation like this? I mean, things don't happen accidentally, they happen. You, the buddy.
Yeah, I sure did.
This was a mean trick, in a good way.
Sorry about that.
How did they do, Rachel?
Well, I had to try and keep it together. You did beautifully.
You think we didn't?
You know, the bunny was in the videos, and I told them, I was like, this is I personally transfer so much into these things. And for you to be bringing them to us today, for you to see those things, does it stir emotions? Do you think back at those times and also the things that are still with us, continue to be with us? What do you think when you see these items, these objects that were such a part of a small life?
Small but mighty, right?
She was.
You know, I think it's been almost 10 years, and it's in an instant, it's all back. And I heard someone say that that grief is a privilege. And it really is. It's a beast and it's a monster, but it's such a privilege to have and to know something and someone that mattered so much. And opening up her box, I haven't done in years, but gosh, it's cathartic, it's tragic, but it's so beautiful. And she's worthy of that time and that pause.
What did you all learn about each other? It's an interesting thing to continue as adults to learn about our parents and to learn about our kids. So through all of this, and I'll ask this is for everybody that's here, what did you learn about each other during that time and now? As adults, what did you learn about each other?
I don't think people realize what they're capable of or what their strength or weakness is until you're in the fire, I guess. And I can remember thinking somewhere along the way when our kids were younger, I think it came from one particular incident, but of wondering about the health of one of the kids and then suddenly imagining that they were taken. I don't think I'd really ever thought of that. And, I don't think anybody has any idea how they're going to go through this. And, you obviously can't be left unchanged when you face this. Your life is going to change. The question's really going to be, which way is it going to take you? I mean, it's either, people either become stronger and they grow, or they spiral and fold, I think. And I think most people probably do the better, but you don't really know, and Rachel didn't know, and we didn't know what Rachel was going to be able to do and how she could handle this until it happened. And I mean, it's hard to say, there's a pride in watching your child mourn. It sounds weird, but I had no idea what she was capable of.
Thanks.
She was, I don't know, just amazing. And still is. But I don't know. I think so many of her gifts were there in this world, but I think they blossomed during this time. And
My last question. I just can't help but think about the gala this year. I can't help but think about people seeing this, and watching it, thinking about their own lives, thinking about things that they've been through, being on that brink of wanting the same things, knowing they want the same things, needing someone to tell them what can be. And I couldn't help but think there's not a trio that I'd want to know more through all of this, the most activating ideas, going, well, what do these two that have been through so much, that want so much, what do they want? On that night, that gala, moving forward with this building, what do they want most? This NICU, these moms, these families, what do they want? Now, that night, and on to the future.
Hope. Just hope in the battle of this world and the brokenness that may come their way in these scary situations of a sick baby. And I just think that would represent hope is right there. Hope is right here in Stillwater. And a hospital of hope and healing, I don't know, but just it just seems less scary if you don't hear those words that we have to send you, to Tulsa or to Oklahoma City. So there's.
Mark, what do you want?
oh, I think that's it. She nailed it. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know what the numbers are here in terms of, you might know that more than me, but how many we transfer or have over the last 35 years, 40 years we've been in Stillwater, but how many of those could have stayed in Stillwater? But it's a lot. I mean, the number is significant, and one's enough. One baby that we save because we have the capabilities here is enough. It'll be a lot more than that, but I just hope that, I want it to be better for the families and more convenient and more comfortable, all those things. And ultimately, what they all want, what we wanted, and continue to want for others is healthy babies and families that get to celebrate birthdays and things like that maybe they wouldn't. And so.
And the stress is so great anyway that to alleviate that stress so a family can have support of their friends and loved ones, that they can go home quickly and rest, and so the siblings can get to know that baby. And it just seems like it lowers the stress so much that already is going to exist in a family having a new baby anyway, and then a sick baby's family.
Finally, Rachel, what do you want?
The NICU at Stillwater is my passion project. And I think for my personal story, it's how it was all supposed to be. You have this baby and these 81 days, and then family and friends rallied behind the effort of creating an endowment in her honor. And so that fundraising element in honor of my child was incredible. And so then to get to come to my hometown where I grew up, where my father worked, and to help push that forward and to make it a reality, it's the greatest gift. And it gives so much purpose to my daughter's story and to what our whole family went through. There's purpose in that. And I think we've all said that now in our own ways, but purpose is a big deal. And so yeah, this NICU is my passion.
Gang, thank you so much. Thank you for allowing us to meet you.
You really should make her talk, actually. More. The whole story.
Oh, sorry, I got you.
You bring the tr-
okay?
You bring the truck?
Does anybody have a shot?
They asked for that before we started.
You were supposed to bring
Maybe
bubbly.
I offered. Maybe Mark and I were joking.
I just wanted water. No, I'm kidding.
You weren't here, so I was asking them to bring champagne.
Before, we have 2 more things for us to do before we get up and we hug
Okay.
for a long time.
Sure, thank you.
Anybody else?
And we're gonna lean into Rachel. We're gonna snuggle in. There we go. There we go. Lean straight to the camera. Perfect. Okay, look at Rachel. Give her a little squeeze. Give her a little squeeze, and then straight to the camera. 3, 2,